If you watched the French language debate last night here in Canada, you would have been watching on mainstream media. And most of what you would have noticed at the end was that the mainstream media did praise Pierre Poilievre for how well he did. They praised a couple other leaders. Jagmeet Singh was particularly vocal than he normally is. But they also praised Mark Carney for his French initially. They praised him for looking a little more improved and looking a little better. And out of that, he got the win. Now, that's what they claimed on air. But what they're claiming silently is a brutal Mark Carney loss. And I have proof of that in today's news stories that have been posted on those mainstream media's websites. Their very websites show you that Mark Carney lost. I have some theories as to why. So we're going to show you the proof, and then we're going to talk about why today on Bakes on Things Daily. Let's go. Welcome back to Bakes on Things Daily. Before we get started, please share, like, subscribe to this video, to this channel as well for the subscription side of things. Everything you do there helps the channel grow and also helps to get these messages out because as Canadians, we are being duped by the mainstream media and we're starting to dig up proof to show you that it's true. So yesterday, I just said in the opening that the mainstream media gave pretty much thumbs up to everyone in the debate. They didn't want to really say anybody lost or won, but today their headlines are showing that Mark Carney lost, and I'll show you why in just a moment. It's really, really telling when you see the mainstream media go silent on the election. It is very, very rare, and if you look into past elections, it is very, very rare that mainstream media, including with the French debate, would drop the debate from their headlines the very next day. But as a matter of fact, that's exactly what they've done. If you look here at CBC's headlines, let's scroll through CBC's headlines right now. This is as of 1 o'clock this afternoon, Eastern Time, April the 17th. So here's CBC. Look at this. Look at this. There's a little bit of promotion about the English language debate, but everything's below the fold. Everything that has anything to do with this election at all is below the fold. How strange is that? That the Canadian election falls below potential life on another planet. Now, normally that would be huge headlines if it was confirmed life on another planet, of course. But as you can see here, it is not. It is just potential, and we've had many of those planets discovered in the past, yet that takes the headline and not the French language debate. Okay, well, we know CBC is liberal heavy, and they want Mark Carney to win. So this is not all that surprising, but this is what we're looking at. Now let's look at CTV. CTV does exactly the same thing. Nary an election story to be found on their headlines. Look at this. Nothing. It all falls below the fold, and it's all specially put into their election section, well below anything you would see if you just loaded up their website. Now, when we take a look at global news, it's mostly the same thing, except they do have a story here above the fold, just promoting that the English language debate is tonight. However, their headlines on French, nary to be found. Nothing. Nothing about analyzing who won. Nothing about digging into the issues. Nothing about into what was said. I have a few theories as to why this actually happened, and we're going to get into it now. So as you know, last night, Canadians tuned in for this French debate, and they were expecting transparency and robust discourse. And as you can see from what I just showed you, the CBC, CTV, and global news in particular, you'd barely know the debate even happened. So why are we seeing this sudden media blackout when there was all this hubbub about the debate? Well, let's dive into why that might be, and what they may be trying to hide. Is this a deliberate downplay? See, post debate, major news outlets relegated coverage to the depths of their platform here. We look at the website, and Global News was the only one that briefly mentioned the upcoming English debate tonight, while CBC and CTV buried the French debate stories and also have in there some promotion of tonight's English debate, but nothing else. This is not a mere oversight. It's a pattern of selective reporting. They're upset about the independent reporters from last night. They're upset about Carney's struggles in French. They're upset that he didn't decidedly win that debate event. Mark Carney, despite his economic credentials, faltered when pressed on critical issues, especially during the questions from the reporters, most of which came from independents. When asked about Justin Trudeau's legacy, he actually affirmed support of the Liberal lost decade. Distancing himself from calls for change, instead, he goes back and says Justin Trudeau did a good job. On questions of gender and identity, his responses lacked clarity, leaving many Canadians to really seek definitive answers. What do the Liberals believe here? Because Mark Carney said there's two genders. That's never what the Liberals were saying. They've never put that, but he just faltered because the questions weren't filtered for him. See, independent journalists seized the opportunity last night to pose challenging questions, and that caught Mark Carney off guard, and he looked terrible. Unlike the rehearsed narratives that they often throw at him, seen in the mainstream interviews at his press conferences and rallies, these spontaneous inquiries made him trip all over himself. It revealed gaps in his preparedness, his adaptability, his leadership ability. He's not able to think on his feet. That's terrible for a prime minister. So what is the bigger picture here when we look at this? Well, the bigger picture is not just public perception. It's whether this guy can do the job. This selective coverage that they've been giving him isn't just about one debate. It's about shaping public perception. They're hiding this debate. They're highlighting the narratives that are convenient for Carney but omitting others. Mainstream media influences the democratic process itself with what they're doing this election, potentially sidelining critical discussions and diverse viewpoints or potential holes in whether this prime minister candidate can even do the job. Canadians deserve comprehensive coverage and honest discourse. Whatever happened last night should be your top story, because the top story in Canada is still the election until April 28th. It's imperative to question not just our leaders, but also the narratives presented to us, which is what we're seeing from mainstream media. Stay informed, folks. Seek diverse news sources and really hold the media accountable. Our politicians and media must be held accountable, including independent media. I'm not letting them off the hook. But if you're going to take any kind of media opinion, see it all first. Because what you're seeing in the mainstream media is deliberately liberal. And when the liberals make a mistake, the election is no longer the top news story. It no longer appears at the top of the news cycle. When and if Mark Carney does something good, the election rises back up to the top of the news cycle. But we're not seeing that. And we're especially not seeing that after the French debate, which I think proves, and I will submit and comment if you disagree, but or even if you agree and found other proof. I've seen other people saying that they have seen images and opportunities to suggest that perhaps there was help being given to Mark Carney during the French debate, which again is totally offside. So, and again, because I don't have proof of that, I'm not bringing that up in this podcast, but it seems to be out there. So when we're seeing these things and we're hearing these things and the mainstream media is burying these things, look at Rosemary Barton and her reaction last night with the panel. I think it was Rebel News or somebody, or True North, I think maybe, that asked a question about gender. And after Mark Carney's answer, there is a moment, and go back to the CBC's coverage of this. There is a moment where they can't believe the way he answered that question, and the cameras caught it. The cameras caught it. Then Rosemary comes on later, and other, not just Rosemary, but other networks too, come on and say, blah, 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 independent media, blah, 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 blah. How dare they ask these questions? What do you mean, how dare they ask a question that the prime minister wasn't prepared for? Prime ministers are going to run into a lot of things they're not prepared for. And if that's the way that he's going to react and respond and has no way to do it other than bumble through it and then run off the stage, we got a real problem, Canada, if you install this guy into the prime minister's office. His lack of experience in politics is showing, and the world knows it. And what's going to happen is the world is going to eat Mark Carney alive. Other leaders who have been in politics for many, many years, who know how politics work, who know how to move things, make decisions, make changes, and push things through, not just in our own country, folks, everywhere across the world, they're going to stomp and walk all over him. And you might make the argument that Donald Trump had a business past and is now a politician and doing just fine in making decisions. Well, first of all, is he really? Look at how the world's reacting to tariffs. Second of all, he already had a term to get some experience in this, not Mark Carney. What you're watching is a businessman have no idea what he's doing, and you're about to potentially install him as prime minister of this country at one of the most crucial times in this country's sovereignty and history. You really need to take a look at what you're doing and what you are voting on here, Canada. Because I'll tell you one thing. He might say he has a good relationship with France and signed a letter. He might say he's had a good relationship with Great Britain and signed a letter. He might say he's had conversations with Donald Trump. But each one of those politicians know exactly how to out-politician him. Is that what you want? Do you want him immediately to be losing? You might say, oh, France wouldn't do that to us. Great Britain wouldn't do that to us. Of course they would. Because if they're going to look good in their political space and spectrum, they're going to do it. So if there's a way to rook Mark Carney, if there's a way to cheat out Mark Carney and win as a country, every other politician across the planet is going to do it. This isn't just about experience in politics in Canada. This is about experience in politics and what that may do when other politicians with decades more experience than Mark Carney will do to us because they know he isn't watching, because they know he isn't paying attention to the details, because he can't, because he doesn't know, because he's never been there. He'll think he's signing a good deal for us. He'll tell you he's signing a good deal for us. And meanwhile, Great Britain and France and the United States and China and everywhere else he goes to sign these particular letters and good deals are all sitting there laughing with a glass of whiskey because they knew what they just did to Mark Carney in Canada. But if you have a politician like Pierre Poilievre, who's been in this for 20 years, who knows what he's doing, who knows how politics works and knows how to spot and sniff out garbage when he sees it, that person will not allow other countries to take advantage of Canada. That person will not allow other politicians around the world to let us believe that we are getting a good deal, only to find out later that we got the raw end of the stick. And they did that on purpose. They did this stuff to Trudeau, folks. That's why Trudeau was laughed at around the world. That's why leaders wouldn't shake his hand. They all knew what they were doing to him in all these different trade agreements and other things. They all knew they were receiving foreign aid they didn't need. They all knew they were receiving foreign aid that went to terrorist organizations. They all knew this, and they knew that Trudeau would give it to them. Do you think that somebody with zero political elected experience would be any different? He's probably worse. So get ready, because your tax dollars are going to be wasted like you wouldn't believe. And on top of that, they're going to have to raise your taxes to cover the balance. Really think about this election, folks. Advance polls are this weekend. Make sure you think, do we want another decade of Trudeau-like governance? Do we want our money wasted? Do we want no political experience in the highest office in the land? Because we think he wrote a book? Because he ran 2 national banks, both of which complained about how he ran them? Because he might be in bed with China the entire time? Listen, folks, Advanced polls this weekend. If you need a couple weeks to think on this a little bit longer, you still got them. April 28th, your last chance to vote. But listen, it's your chance. It's your chance to change this country. It's your chance to change our trajectory, I should say. It's your chance to change our Oh man, well look at that. Must be getting close to a long weekend. Trajectory. It is your chance to make a difference in this country. Really take that chance. We'll catch you next time.